By continuing the process of inflation, governments can confiscate, secretly and unobserved, an important part of the wealth of their citizens. This was all planned, ladies and gentlemen. Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I get asked this question a lot, believe it or not, and it's what will happen to gold and silver if we have a CBDC, a centralized digital currency, or a central bank digital currency. And what I've always come back with is that we will always have a black market. Throughout history, the black market is a way that people get around government regulations and laws. And I think that it was named the black market to make it sound bad. But when you think about it, the black market, the best example I can use of it is, I forgot what year it was probably a decade or more ago, when Argentina was going through one of their 3 or 4 financial collapses. So they had a problem. How would they interact in an economy to be able to trade value for value? And what they did is they started their own like pseudo currency. So they opened up a huge flea market type of a market that sold everything, and people would come in there and buy and sell, but they had their own currency that you could only spend in that. I'm going to call it free market or open air market. You could only spend it there and you could only earn it there. So you can go make something of value, bring it there, sell it for some of their currency that they had circulating in that open market, and then you can use that currency to buy stuff that you needed to live day to day. Same thing with gold and silver. That is what will happen, in my opinion, if a CBDC takes hold. Now, before we get into this, I also want to go ahead and tell you what I think is going to happen with CBDCs. Will it actually happen? Will the government make you use it? All that stuff. After listening to what Mr. Martin Armstrong had to say about CBDCs, it just makes so much sense the way that he explains it. Our Constitution really doesn't allow for a CBDC. Does it really? No, so it can be fought. But not only that, we have a lot of states that have strong governors that are going to say, no, we're not doing the CBDC. So how will the government get around that and still institute a CBDC that they can pretty much control? Well, what's going to happen is that when a lot of these banks continue to fail, the smaller banks continue to fail, eventually there's only going to be a handful or maybe a dozen big banks left over when they consume all of the other smaller banks. And they are going to go ahead and institute their own CBDCs. So maybe there will be 6 or 10 or 12 CBDCs that are not instituted by the governments, but by the banks. And guess who controls the banks? The Federal Reserve. And guess who controls the Federal Reserve? Yes, the Federal Reserve is a private institution, but it's pretty much controlled by the government. So that's how they're going to get around us having to have a CBDC without it being put into law by the government. That's just what I think, and I got that from Mr. Martin Armstrong. That's what he thinks as well. We will see what happens. But gold and silver, you have to have it. With the eventual introduction of CBDCs now seemingly inevitable, there are a lot of directions central banks could take with their digital currency projects that would have dramatic implications for the price of gold. Now here, I think they're missing that, what I just talked about, that the government, I don't think the government can institute a CBDC and make people do it unless the people ask for it, right? I forgot to talk about that. Because I've said it before, they have to institute some kind of a major crisis, whatever it may be, where the people are in such destitute where they say to the government, please give me that CBDC. I don't care if the Constitution says it's not allowed. I don't care. Break the Constitution, rip that paper up, and take away my liberties as long as I can use some of that CBDC you're going to give me to put a loaf of bread on the table. I better stop, ladies and gentlemen, getting a little bit excited. Touted for their convenience and efficiency, the end game of digital currencies is not only achieving greater power over the currency, but also a means of surveillance and micromanaging the personal finances of each individual. Now listen to this. Owe taxes or a parking ticket, it could be automatically, without due process, deducted from your account. Does the Fed think it needs to cool inflation? Well, all they have to do now is deduct the money straight from people's accounts to reduce inflation and stop people from spending, or impose a daily spending limit. You know, like in Cyprus here, I think it was back in 2013, where they bailed in all of their depositors, and then they told them you could only have, I think it was 50 euros a day or something like that. Same concept. The possibilities for control and profit are endless and too tempting for control-freak bureaucracies and amoral tech companies to ignore. And do you think that the government's not going to take advantage of this power? Has the government giving us back any of our liberties that is stripped from us after passing the Patriot Act back in 2001? Are you still taking your shoes off at the airport, taking your belts off at the airport, going through that scanner at the airport? Since CBDCs and the idea of a cashless society are most about increasing centralization and control on the society and individuals, it is easy to see how they might be accompanied by a new legislation banning precious metals, investing in other non-state approved financial activities. Non-state approved. Remember what I said in previous videos? This used to be these United States of America, where each state did what was important for itself, and where the government couldn't put out a blanket law that covered everyone. But now it's the United States of America. That is such a big change that I don't think many people know about or talk about, but I digress. All they need is a severe financial crisis to provide the justification. After all, during the Great Depression, the federal government swiftly used the executive order to demand that citizens give their gold back to the government in return for $20.67. And then, not too long after, FDR, which was a great president, ladies and gentlemen, I'm being sarcastic, but not too long after that, he says, hey, let's go ahead and inflate the money supply by 65%. And then use that money that we printed out of thin air. Then we can use that money to employ people to go do projects for the government and be employed by the government. So they stole the people's money, all right, because they coerced them into turning in their real money. They inflated the money supply with paper notes, and then they put people to work with the same money that was stolen from them. Incredible. Once their CBDC is rolled out, central bankers will have more ability than ever to manipulate the money supply and your personal finances according to their whims. And listen to this summary from a BIS report in 2023. Quote, as well as improving existing processes through the seamless integration of transactions. Sounds great. A unified ledger could harness programmability to enable arrangements that are currently not practicable, thereby expanding the universe of possible economic outcomes. What are they saying? That they can manipulate the economy at their whim. That they can pretty much tell you where you can buy, when you can buy, how much you can spend, and when you can spend it, ladies and gentlemen. Is that your money? If they can tell you all of that, all of those rules that you have to follow, is that really your money? That's why I've stated in the past that if a CBDC truly does pass and it is imposed on we the public, like 100% of the public, that it is our labor that we're giving up, because we won't even know what our labor is worth. We rarely know what our labor is really worth today because of inflation. But with a CBDC, they can make your labor worth whatever they want it to be worth. Why? Because today you can make $20 an hour and buy this with $20, but tomorrow if they feel a certain way, you won't be able to buy nothing. So then why did you labor? Here they say that they wouldn't expect that a Western CBDC would contain gold backing or the protection of any kind of restrictive protocol. But I predict that in a centralized nation or international digital currency system of any kind, central banks will still hold large amounts of gold in reserves. Why is that? Because they know what real money is, and that's what they don't want you to know. And they say that the difference is that banks would be the only ones who are allowed to hold gold, while broader society will no longer have access to cash. With all other potential options to opt out of this system fully digitized and prevent it from competing with CBDCs, gold and silver will become the only way to exist and transact outside the central bank's digital control grid with any semblance of true freedom or agency. Black markets will have to turn to various forms of analog money, and gold and silver will rise as the top options. Ladies and gentlemen, the black market is always here. You know what a black market is now? And this is one of the reasons why they want to go to a CBDC. One of the reasons why they want to go to a CBDC is because the IRS came up with a number. Mr. Armstrong said this. Go check out the video that I put out with Mr. Armstrong. I mean, a lot of good information there. But he said the reason they want to go to a CBDC is because the IRS came up with a number of 35 or 36%, which is what they believe they can collect more in taxes if they had a CBDC. But how is that, AP? I already pay a whole bunch of taxes. Well, do you have kids? Did you go to the movies? Did you get a babysitter? Did you pay her with cash? Did she pay taxes on that cash that you paid her with? Absolutely not. But if they get rid of cash and you pay her with a CBDC, then of course that's going to get taxed immediately, ladies and gentlemen, because for you to transfer that money from your wallet to her electronic wallet, they're going to see that and say, oh, wait a minute, this is for babysitting. She's got to pay tax on that. So they're not doing this for your convenience. They're doing this to tax you even more. And taxes equal what? Taxes equal oppression, meaning that you're not free. Now, finishing it off, some legislators are recognizing the CBDC threat and fighting against it, and that is a great thing. But the more that we, the people, know about this, the more that we can push it as well. And they're declaring that CBDCs are a threat, and they are empowering precious metal holders, just like a lot of these states that are now saying, hey, gold and silver is real money. It will not be taxed. In some states, you can even interact and pay your taxes with gold. I'm not sure about silver, but at least with gold. However, I'm not sure it will be enough to fight the CBDC tide being engineered by central banks. Remember, they just need a really big crisis to put people in despair and have them accept whatever solution it is that they're offering. If the architects of CBDCs can market their new system as the solution to an epic financial crash of their own making, Hegelian dialectic, ladies and gentlemen, it will likely appear as a sign of stability that calms global markets, possibly causing gold and silver to drop. Now, this is what will happen if we do go into a CBDC because of a major crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, once the population accepts it as a whole, it's going to be great. CBDCs are going to work great, seamless. People are going to be like, man, we should have done this a lot sooner. But then the control measures are going to start stacking up on top of each other. So we're not going to allow you to pump gas today because it's climate day, right? Make up whatever you want and they can do it. But as precious metals emerge as the best form of physical money in a tightly controlled, micromanaged financial dystopia, they'll become the only way to make private or off-grid transactions, making them more valuable than ever, not only as investments, but as a means of survival outside the fully digitized fiat nightmare. When they created this fiat currency system, the creators already knew, ladies and gentlemen, that there was going to be a very big crash where this fiat system would not survive. But why did they do that? Because they didn't care. Ladies and gentlemen, that's why they knew that it would take longer than their lifespan for this to happen. So they enriched themselves at the cost of the people. And that is why we have to resist the CBDC the best that we can. That is why we have to prepare the best that we can so that we can use our no muscles when it really counts. Unfortunately, we had a chance as a nation to use our no muscles collectively a few years ago. And most people decided not to. But that's another video for a different time at a different platform, obviously. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for all of your support. I truly do appreciate every one of you. If you want to support what I do, please give the video a like. Please let it run all the way through. If you're still here, you're awesome. Other than that, have a great rest of your day. God bless every one of you. God bless America. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out.